Well, folks, welcome to another edition of Why I Joined eXp. Today, I have the good luck, actually, and it's not luck at all. I have the good fortune to have Ernesto Furtado on the line. And Ernest is in somewhere in the Algarve region of Portugal. Welcome to the show, Ernest.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be here, and I'm in the area called Carvoeiro, which is in the Algarve, which is the southern region of Portugal.
Ernest, we got connected reasonably recently. This is the first time we've actually had a conversation, but we got connected through our eXp platforms where I was on some sort of webinar thing. It wasn't a webinar, but you might be able to describe what we were on. And I heard one of our kind of leaders in our organization, Brent Gove, say, "Hello, Ernesto." And because of that, I reached out to you because you're in Portugal. And I've been in Portugal once and I loved it. Do you like Portugal?
I love it. It's been an amazing journey. Just give you a quick history how, my parents are Portuguese. I was born in Brazil and raised in Canada. So I've been a Toronto boy most of my life. 48 years of my life is spent in Toronto, Canada. And 38 years of those 48 years have been in real estate in Toronto, Canada, but always did a lot of stuff nationally and internationally. So my focus has been in the commercial investment world, and so this is great. This is how. We decided to support eXp in the growth of expansion to eXp Portugal and in Brazil and some other countries that we're encouraging and supporting as well. And that's how we wound up here. A year ago, we've been here, and I was just asking my wife, and we've lived in about 46 different places in the last year. So we've traveled up and down and sideways and explored because I wanted to learn the culture. I wanted to meet the country and the history. It's a beautiful country, and just meet the different people and introduce people to eXp and learn about realty and culture and try not to gain too much weight because the food here is amazing.
Well, you're looking fit. And so when I mentioned, I sort of said, so when did you move back to Portugal, assuming you were Portuguese with that great name of yours? But again, your Portuguese parents, born in Brazil, spent most of your life in Canada, in real estate in Canada for 40 years, and moved to Portugal it sounded like October of 2019, or no, 2020.
2020, yeah.
2020, yeah. And helped launch eXp in Portugal in December 7th, 2020. So it hasn't been a year.
Nope, 11 months almost.
And currently, you told me there's just shy of 200 agents, eXp agents in Portugal. But let's get back a little bit to you and your business in Toronto, Canada, where you worked for 40 years. It sounds like you did mostly commercial. Did you do some residential as well?
So I got into the real estate world in 1983, just to give you an idea. And at the time I was 21, going to be 22 years old. And just to support my habit of flipping properties, I wanted to be a builder. Mm-hmm. That's why I got into real estate. And for the first 5 years of my career, I was pretty much my best client. I was buying and flipping properties, and in the process of doing that, I started, the plumber wanted to buy a place, and the carpenter wanted to buy a place, and the roofer, and so on and so forth. I started building that. And then we started doing joint venture deals on infill properties, meaning taking down old houses, putting in new houses, buying a larger lot, splitting the lots, ripping off the roof of a bungalow, putting on a second story, and we grew from there. So in the process of, and then, the guy needed a warehouse, the guy needed something else. So it was mostly in the investment and development world has been most of my career. And sometimes we bought gas stations and converted them into townhouse complexes and housing complexes. And an old church we bulldozed, believe it or not. Another church we converted into lofts. So we've done a lot of stuff, always in the development side. And Toronto has been a huge growth. and higher density. So now it's taking small street fronts and topping those things, adding 2, 3, 4 stories on top of a single story or building a building.
Wow.
So we were part of in the early 80s or mid 80s by that time, the initial conversion of loft conversions started in Toronto. So Candy Factory and some other stuff.
Well,
I got involved in some of that.
that sounds like you've had quite a ride. I assume, I mean, there was obviously success, but it probably couldn't have been all success, or has it always been success?
Oh, it was very successful until 1989, and then somebody said recession's coming, and I'm like, what's recession? And the next thing I know, I was, from being in a very great position from 1990 to 95, it was not fun years. Mm-hmm. And again, my ignorance saved my butt because I just kept going. Kept going. We're buying and selling. I'm one of these crazy people that believe as realtors, you don't suffer recession unless you allow what's going on outside, because people are buying and selling all the time.
Right.
In good times they buy, and bad times the smart people buy and the people have to sell. So
right.
There's always something going on.
Uh-huh. Very good. And so you joined eXp, it sounded like in 2017, which to me was like a long, long time ago in terms of me joining in February. And I should say you joined in 2017. I joined February of 2021, this current year. What made you you're in the business, you've done a lot of stuff. It's, commercial, residential, building, it sounds like a lot of stuff. How come at maybe at our age, at your age, you would join this model in 2017? Like, what was it about the model that you said, "Hey, I'm leaving whatever"? Oh, I think you mentioned it. Tell us about some of the brokerages you've been with. I know Keller Williams was one of them. And why did you make the switch to eXp?
Button Group for 13 years, Remax for about 3.5 years. I worked with Royal LePage, commercial, Royal LePage residential, which we did the commercial side. I've always worked with residential brokerages, and I was always the commercial guy in the brokerage. So my client base was pretty much residential realtors. I would market to residential realtors to get referrals or help them out and do co-brokering with them on commercial deals.
And then why did you move to, how did it happen that in 2017 you said yes to eXp?
As I mentioned to you, my career of sort of helping to build commercial divisions for residential brokers started with a company called Planet Realty. And we built a commercial department for them. And then I got introduced to Keller Williams. One of my investors wanted me to buy a brokerage and run the brokerage. And because we were doing so many deals with them, and he says, why don't we just have our own brokerage? So I started doing a study. So, buying a home life brokerage or a Remax brokerage and things like that. And I discovered Keller Williams. And I thought, this is a really cool model. I got really interested in the model and started studying them about commercial as well. And just went and joined them and started. I was fortunate enough to meet Joe Williams, which is the Williams from Keller. And Joe wanted a commercial division. So we started about 18 of us. This is back when this is 2007, 2006 is when I joined. And by 2008, we started KW Commercial. And so from 18 to 1,800 in 18 months, that's our story. So it was a great growth. And some regions, because they're a franchise system, unlike us, and some regions, the regional directors or regional owners were in favor of commercial, and some regions were not. Anyway, that's a long story to say that's how we started building stuff. I left there after Canada was one of the regions that was not in favor of KW commercial, so it didn't make any sense for me to start. I pushed that rock up the hill on my own, the boulder, for 6 years, and I said, okay, enough's enough. And then we worked on some other, iPro commercial and some other stuff. Royal LePage got back the rights to open Royal LePage commercial again, so I worked with them for a little bit. And always searching for this, this company. So one of the young men that I worked with, KW, was sort of he was very attracted to commercial and opened his own brokerage. So I was working with him, and I thought, okay, this is where I'll spend the rest of my career. Just most of my business has been most of, I wouldn't say, I would say 30 to 40% of the transactions I've always been involved in personally as well. So I've always took a piece of the action. I was always either part of the construction team or the design or the investment team, or take a piece of the transaction. And then one of the gentlemen who I worked with Keller Williams called me up and said if I was interested in learning how to use an iPad for realtors, how to run your whole real estate business on an iPad. And I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? And then, and as I mentioned to you earlier, there was always the intention to be able to travel, to travel and do real estate. Where I've done a lot of deals internationally as well, like in Mexico and Brazil and Panama and many states in the U.S. We've done referral deals back and forth. And anyway, so I get invited to this class, realtor for real estate, how to realtors using iPad for their business.
Yeah.
And the gentleman said, you come to the course and there's a guy who's going to do a presentation. Halfway, he's going to buy coffee and donuts for us, and you're going to take a break. And I'm like, okay, but you got to sit and listen to his spiel for about 20 minutes. And the gentleman got about halfway into the presentation of the Keller Williams with the eXp presentation. And I got so excited because the magic thing for me is, this is a company, it's one company globally. And I understood right away because in a commercial, I saw the value of the large commercial brokerages being a single entity as opposed to franchise systems, which is always a hindrance to growth in my opinion, but I could be wrong. But in the commercial world, to have one brand, one logo, and then the fact, as soon as he mentioned I could work from anywhere in the world because we have a platform, we don't have an office, I was in. That was my hook. The moment he said, we can work from anywhere. Because in 2008, as I mentioned to you earlier, we were at a convention, and I recall, there was like 5,000 or 6,000 agents in this convention. And the moment there was a break, everybody would just run out, get on their phones and get to a fax machine back in the days, or get to an email, or have to print stuff, scan it, fax it back, and all of that fun stuff. And I said to Mike, I said at the time, wouldn't it be great if we can work from anywhere in the world? This is 2008, so the eXp even being born, wasn't even born then.
Right.
And so that always stayed in my mind. It stayed in my mind. So that one day it'd be great to work with a brokerage that I can work from anywhere.
So
we love people, so that's how it began.
Just on the two things now, Ernesto, you've been in this business for a long, long time. And so you're talking and saying things that a lot of the listeners will not get at all. So two things I'd like to sort of reach back to that you said. One was being that
being a fax machine.
Well, no, that I understand that, but lots probably won't. You're right. You mentioned how you were working with KW, Keller Williams, which was a franchise system unlike us. Can you go into a little bit about what that is, what that means, and why it's different? I assume why it's better, that we're not a franchise system. And the other thing you mentioned is, before I forget, is you mentioned how you like this thing that you can work anywhere. So when you say work anywhere, so does that mean that you can go to Panama and go to work and sell a house? How can you work anywhere? But let's first address the franchise system. How is eXp not a franchise system, or how is it different? You said the Keller Williams being a franchise system, unlike us. Why is that important?
Important because a franchise system is, my limited knowledge is the fact that you buy a franchise, you buy a region, or you buy, if you're fortunate to own a region, and then you sell franchises within that region. But basically you buy a franchise and you buy it on ABC Street, in this neighborhood, and that's your market. And then, somebody else will buy the same franchise, a couple of kilometers down the road. I've seen here in Portugal, we've seen, Remax offices across the street from each other. They don't even have a, an non-competing clause for different areas or something. But anyway, so and it's a separate ownership. It's somebody owns David Leninger. I'm using Remax as just as an example. Most people know Remax. So there's the corporate ownership, and then that's, they're publicly owned as well now, but he's the major shareholder. And then there's the regional persons, and then there's the franchise owners, and then there's all the managers, and then all the staff, and then the agents. What the eXp did is they flipped that upside down. We don't have regions, we don't have franchises, we don't have, that whole system. The agents are the owners of eXp Holdings, which is one company globally, and so there's only one. And we're all the owners. We're 340 something thousand owners of eXp Realty, and then the staff works for us as opposed to the other way around, right? And in real estate, most countries are independent contractors. I get it, but you don't get shares of the company. We get, we obviously, there's a revenue share thing, which we've maybe spoken about in this podcast. We get paid for helping to grow the company. We get paid for, in many years, you get an award, top lister, top producer, whatever. You get a plaque, you get a trophy, you get a medallion, whatever. We get all those things, plus we get stock. So, which is a bonus. Right. So when I get into this company, which is a big thing, which we didn't talk about, the stock was worth, well, before the split, it would be the equivalent of about $1.50, $1.75 today. And our stock is hovering between 50 and $60. So it's not bad. For 4 years, it makes a big difference.
Wow. And okay, so that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. That actually helps me understand a little bit too how we're unlike, we're not a franchise system. Now the other thing you mentioned about is like being able to work from anywhere in the world. So is that in doing that, is that primarily by growing the company and earning income through rev share? When you mentioned that,
one is that for sure. We get paid for helping to grow the company anywhere that we're open. We're now in 18 countries, as you know. It's been a phenomenal growth. eXp has broken every record. There's no known company that's had the same growth rate as we hold a record of fastest growing real estate company ever. So just to give you an example, when I came scouting to Portugal, we were in 4 countries. We are now in 18 countries. So in about a year and a half,
wow,
14 countries. So and more, we're not over yet. There's probably 1 or 2 more possibly this year. We don't know, but there's lots of countries that are in the pipeline to be open. So, our vision is to be in 100 countries in the next 10 years.
Cool. And so what is your, maybe you could share a little bit about your current goals in the company, or just what's happening in Ernesto's life here in the next, say, 1 year to 5 years.
So let me finish answering your question, because you asked how can you work from anywhere, and I mentioned to you earlier, to work from anywhere, become a global referral agent. So I'm a GMA, which is a global marketing agent, and so basically you can do referrals from anywhere. So if I go into a country where a license is required, and I always partner up with an agent on site, right? So if I have a buyer or a seller, so I take a piece of the action. I'm happy getting a slice of the pie and getting a percentage of, there's the compound effect. Is it better to have 100% of my efforts or 1% of 100 people's efforts? Right. So that's a goal. So to work from anywhere, become a global marketing agent and referral agent, and then, as I mentioned to you, work 24/7. So that's the key.
Oh, wait, we got to talk about 24/7. It took me a while to understand that. Talk to us about 24/7. What does that mean?
Well, it's funny enough that, that concept of work from anywhere and this 24/7 was always in that lunch conversation with Mike. And he said, he says, man, and it just flashed in my head. I was doing the numbers in my head. He said, one day I want to work 24/7. He goes, you're working 24/7 now, right? Literally, because of a workaholic. In real estate, if you don't learn how to control it, you can work 24/7. Right. And I said, no, I want to work 24 hours a week, 7 months to the year. That's the new 24/7. That's the life I want. I want to work Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, right? I want to take four-day weekends every week. And then I want to only work in the spring and the fall. I want to take summer and winters off. And so that became like this crazy dream. and again, and then there you go. So 9 years later, there's a company that can allow me to live that crazy dream.
That's awesome. Very good. And then what was my next question? I was asking you about how can you work. So actually, let's go back to the global marketing agents. You're a globally market agent, and you have done, and you have the ability to go in and sort of send referrals out. So as a young agent, and maybe listening to this, or say a relatively new agent listening to this podcast, how, are you, is it because your Rolodex that you are able to refer back and forth, or is there a strategy to market yourself as that so that you actually have referrals and can sort of farm out business? Maybe just talk to our audience a little more about that.
Sure. Well, I look at Canada as such an international market, especially in the Toronto market. I mean, we're basically the United Nations right in the city. I don't know what Calgary's like, but there's, people in Canada typically come from somewhere else.
Right.
So there's always people that have family somewhere else, or they want to move somewhere else. Everybody's dream in Canada is either, when they get older, to move to Arizona or move to Florida or buy a vacation property somewhere warm. And then, or vice versa. The guys in the South want a ski chalet in the North for whatever reason. They just haven't lived enough cold winters that they want that. But whatever it is, so there's an opportunity there. Global marketing agent. I was explaining to someone yesterday, the power of referrals. I remember being in a convention one time, and there was 5,000+, a similar convention as the one I mentioned earlier. And the speaker said, how many people work on referrals? Very little, amount of people put their hand up. And he says, you guys are a bunch of fools. He says, that is the most profitable business because, and that's how I started my commercial business, working on referrals from realtors, because it was easy for me. It was just marketing to the agents as if you need some support. Imagine you work in an area and you get a listing, and now it's a lot easier because of internet. You can sort of do market analysis pretty much anywhere in the world, for that matter. But for sure, with an MLS system, you have access. You can get a market analysis. But you're not going to take a listing an hour, 2 hours away from where your home is, because that would be, some people do it, but it's silly. Number one, you don't know the neighborhood. You're not going to go show up to do the proper service to a buyer or a seller, for that matter. And so working with, collaboration with other people and having that network of people. So I call you up and I said, Brian, I have a buyer in Calgary. He's a client of mine. He's looking to move out there. Can you take care of him? Right. So I worked an hour, met with the client, maybe called you half an hour. You're going to do 99.9% of the work, and I'm going to get 25% referral or possibly more. Right. Negotiate that. If it's a listing, I could probably negotiate a few points more, 30 points or something on a listing. And so that's always been my business, working on, on a referral system. So you take that from an hour away to 5 hours away to another country. It's still broker to broker referrals. Everything's documented. It's still a referral agreement. It's still a marketing, and as a marketing agent, you can actually make money in between. You can get paid from even another agent, and you can make a piece of the action somewhere in the middle. So there's a whole, anybody interested more about becoming a GMA, let me know and I can talk more about that.
Nice. Well, wonderful. And we'll include notes, of course, how to reach you. And what about some of your future goals in the next, say, 1 year or 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Will you be in Portugal, for example?
No, our goal is to travel, continue to travel. That was the beauty of eXp. So, we came to Portugal because I actually wanted to open up Brazil. So Brazil is a big country. It's 26 states, not 50 states, but 26 states. They all have their own regions. So it's a massive country. It's one of the largest, like Canada. It's in the top 5 largest countries in the world, and different demographics and different regions and so on and so forth. And I actually we did a project. We did a development project in Brazil, and my business partner then, he said, I said, why aren't we going to Rio? Why aren't we going to Sao Paulo? Why are we sticking to the Northeast? And he goes, Ernest, it's better to be a small fish it's better to be a big fish in a little pond than be a small fish in a big pond. Right? You don't want to get killed. And I thought, So the idea of that, it made more sense to open Portugal, get the documentation, get acclimatized in the translation, because Brazil speaks Portuguese, not Spanish, even though it's in South Africa. It made more sense to open up Portugal, and it's almost 11 million people here. You can travel from north to south in 6 or 7 hours. It's a beautiful highways, and then east to west in 2.5 hours. So it's not that big a country. I think you can fit Portugal and Alberta probably 3 or 4 times, 3 times probably. And so there's demographics and size, and then and it made sense. There's a lot of, I would say, 75% of the people here speak English. I call Portugal the Florida of Europe. This is where people come to retire and vacation, and most people speak English.
Interesting. So I guess sort of bringing me back to, where do you see yourself in a year? What's your 1-year goal or 5-year goal? Like, where do you see? Maybe can you share a little bit with that?
It wasn't for COVID, we opened Portugal, as you know, and then we opened France, and then we opened Italy and Spain, and now Germany just opened about a month ago. And so that's the goal, to keep growing throughout Europe. And the UK, obviously, as you know, has been open, and in India opened at the same time, Mexico, Panama, Colombia, different countries. And so we like I said, we're going to grow in another 100 countries, possibly in, who knows, whatever it is. I mean, the idea is to just keep growing. So our projection, the way we're growing, about 60 to 70% annual growth, which is unheard of. So we'll finish the year probably at 70, 75,000. I don't know what the numbers are, because it's just to give a sense of, and I don't know if it was shared in this your podcast before, we grow between 800 to 1,000 agents a week. Right, just to give you an idea of our growth, which is unheard of. So we just hit 60,000 in the US, and the other 7,300 is global, between Canada and the rest of the countries that basically just started opening. India alone hit 1,000 agents in 10 months.
Can I ask you a question, a little bit of a throwback, and maybe a little bit of you're going to find it a slow question. So a guy listening to this, or a girl listening to this now, they grew up in North America. They speak one language. They have an interest in travel in Europe, for example, or Mexico, or Brazil, or India. Is there an opportunity for someone with an entrepreneurial sort of spirit, with a real estate background, to help this company grow? Like, how does this North American with one language, go to Europe and work? Well,
I shared earlier. There's a woman here in Portugal. And she's, as far as I know, she's born in South Africa, was educated or somehow spent time in the UK, and came to vacation here. Anyways, fell in love with the place. She speaks very little Portuguese, enough to probably just get by. Very, very little. My understanding, just enough to eat. She survives, and she's been with us for about 9 months, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And she's built a team of 24 or 25 different agents. She's working with expats. All her clients are English speaking who don't speak Portuguese. So she's here to help them, and she has our staff and support from, so there's, as I think what you said, it's being entrepreneurial and figuring it out. You learn a different language if you want to move to another country. But I don't think there's very few countries in the world where there's people that don't need the business. And again, the beauty of what I do and what you can do and anybody could do is team up with somebody who speaks the language. That's all. Just find somebody who speaks the language to become your partner in that country, and you guys can do deals together. 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And why would you want to be in trouble? Right? Learn about the country. That was me. I spent a month just studying the market, and traveling a little bit here. We spent a month here just being on the ground and learning about, every day was just talking to people about real estate, and how is it done, who does it, and how is it done, and how long does it take, and what are the issues, what is the pros and what are the cons, and da 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 da. And it was different. It's very different than, if you come from North America with our MLS systems and all the tools we have. And out here, it's the wild, wild west. It's very primitive compared to our systems. But it's getting better. It's getting better. They're learning from us in eXp and other companies, with the Keller Williamses and the Remaxes, Century 21, Global Banker, all these these American franchises that have come here to help to grow and shift, and educate people how to work. But there's still culture. In North America, about 5% are what we call FSBOs, for sale by owners. Mm-hmm. In Europe, it's about 60% are for sale by owners.
Oh, wow. Never thought of it like that. Neat. Ernest, you're growing the company of eXp. You're taking big efforts to do that. If somebody was interested in eXp, learning more, potentially aligning with yourself, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, Ernest Furtado, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not a big Twitter guy, but I'm on Twitter, so social media for sure. And then that's if you don't have the time to write it down, and otherwise it's ernest.furtado@exprealty.com. It's my email. And I still have a Toronto number, 416-539-9977. So it's WhatsApp. By the way, folks, it's the rest of the world use WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is not a big thing, but in Europe and South America, that's the thing. Everybody, they don't want your cell number, they don't want your home number, they want your WhatsApp number.
Neat. I felt quite proud of myself that oh no, it wasn't you. It was somebody else actually that I contacted on WhatsApp today. It's taken me about 4 years, but and Ernest, if you hadn't asked of the listener or the audience today, maybe already licensed kind of eXp realtor looking to maybe move as this opportunity affords them, which I actually doubt is my listener, but more someone who's maybe considering real estate and a move to our company eXp. What ask would you have of our listeners? Any final ask as we wind down this show?
Well, like a lot of companies that have this revenue share model and growth. So I don't care what you heard about eXp. Do yourself a huge favor and really analyze the company and take the time to learn properly how this company works and why it has this massive, insane growth, why it's attracting the top earners in the industry globally. Why are people so attracted to this thing? What do these people know that you don't know? Why are people selling their companies and converting them, and coming to work with eXp? It's a unique model. There's a reason for this amazing growth and the success of this company. And a lot of people, unfortunately, sometimes get presented eXp in the wrong way. And so they don't appreciate it, or, they get harassed or whatever it is, because we do have this revenue share growth. But understanding the numbers and understanding how we operate, and it doesn't matter if you can stay where you're at. If you're happy, that's great. We're all about collaboration, so we're going to work together anyway. So, but at least, make an informed decision before you do anything. I had a conversation with I do the model explained and teaching people how to grow their revenue share, how to grow their team. So here's what I say, and this is I think the best advice I can give. Real estate in general, you got to treat it like a business. If you're going to treat it like a job, it's always going to be painful and hard. So it's got to be the book, The E-Myth. If you haven't read that book, The E-Myth, if you haven't read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you haven't read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is a very popular book amongst real estate people, becoming a sub. So treating it like a business. And the beautiful thing about eXp and why it's attracting a lot of these large brokerages to convert to working with eXp, being powered by or brokered by eXp, is eXp is a platform for you to build your business on top. That's all it is. So, Glenn took away all the pain and suffering of the brokerage part, which is, if you run a brokerage, if you run a team, you know what that means. If you haven't, you don't know what that means. You don't know what that pain is, right? It's a pain. right? And so he's taken away the hard part. We don't have bricks and mortar, which is your biggest expense in any business, right? If you're going to open a restaurant, that's your biggest expense. If you're going to open a hotel, your bricks and mortar is your biggest expense. So 35 to 45% is the building that you're in. It costs us less than $200, right? So our building is virtual, it's 3D, and it's the future. It's, join us now or join us later, but or you're going to have to adapt to this system because that's where it's going.
Ernest, thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.